Today's show is brought to you by our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. Rivalries, upset, chaos, college football is the best. And when you sign up with Hard Rock Bet today, you place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you get $150 in bonus bets on top of your winnings. How do you beat that? Do not sit on the sideline. Download the Hard Rock Bet app now. Plus, today and tomorrow on the Hard Rock Bet app, you can get a college football profit boost for the games. Boost your college football parlay so your bet pays extra winnings. There's new promos daily, so if you're listening to this later, just open the app and check out what you've got any day of the week. Head over to Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook app and make your first deposit today. Pretended to be a Giants fan because tonight I kind of was, because right before the game I dabbled on the Giants. I said, what the hell, let's make this game entertaining. And Cam Skattebo and Jaxson Dart get an early defining win against I'd call them a former rivalry that it's kind of dissipated over the last couple of years because the Giants have been so bad now for a while. But that's a massive win for Brian Daboll, for Jaxson Dart, and the Eagles. As my guy Charles Woodson put out on the X, the Everything app, someone's getting fired. Before we dive into any football, I need you to subscribe. A lot of you guys that watch are not subscribed. We go live after every primetime game. We'll be back Sunday night. Heard it's a pretty good one. Chiefs, Lions, ever heard of them? Then Monday night, heard we got a doubleheader. We will be back after the late night game, so subscribe. We're live 3 times a week, and we got a bunch of other content. Subscribe to the podcast, which is also this show. But we got a lot to talk about. Obviously, we're going to dive into the Thursday night game. Some other stuff that happened. I saw something regarding the Cleveland Browns and the amount of money they're paying different quarterbacks. The schedules right now, based on the rest of the league, is there are a couple teams that I think there's some serious pressure on based on how easy their schedule is. And I saw actually a Netflix executive said something in regards to getting involved in the NFL. And tomorrow, I recorded it today, but Stucky every Friday, we'll go over gambling. We got a big college football slate, and we got a pretty good NFL slate. Definitely some underdogs that are pretty interesting. But listen, the story of the night is earlier this year, probably like late spring, early summer, I played in this golf tournament with a buddy who was a college quarterback at the University of San Diego, and his kid's a college football player. I'm actually playing golf with him early tomorrow morning in a high school fundraiser. And we were playing against he invited me to his club, a bunch of guys that were either ASU alumni that had played golf at ASU, that are ASU season ticket holders. And Cam Skattebo was like a cult hero for them, obviously, because if you've lived in this area for a while, the program had sucked for so long. And last year, this guy was like a gliding, driving light, a driving force, just an incredible season of a human that felt like you were just dragging us to the most important football season that ASU had in honestly probably 25 years, since Jake Plummer in the late 90s. And I kept getting asked, like, well, how good is he going to be in the pros? What's he going to be like in the NFL? And I kind of got to take the L because I wasn't necessarily trying to be negative. I root for the guy. I grew up, he's younger than me, but we probably grew up 25 minutes away from each other. He grew up in Sacramento. He played at Sac State, transferred to ASU. I said, listen, for every Mike Allstott and guys that play with that physical nature, most guys are unable to translate that style to the pros. Unless you're an all-time physical freak like an Adrian Peterson, typically things that translate are like making guys miss. Why did Frank Gore have such a long career? Because of his vision, because of his understanding on angles, and not taking a punishment. And that's what a lot of good running backs do. Obviously, you're going to take hits, but it's understanding how to avoid hits so you can have a long career. And I'm like, Skattebo, that's the way he plays. Like, there's no changing it at this time. But I don't think he will be able to run over guys in the NFL. And then, as we've seen early, and what I got wrong is that, one, this NFL currently is not the NFL that I grew up on, with linebackers that were 260, 270 pounds, that were paid to hit Lorenzo Neal in the hole and take on a collision that was just going to bang heads all day long. It is a lot more, beside the defensive line, which are obviously big guys, but linebackers now are much smaller and faster, and same thing with safeties. It's much more of a cover position than it is seeing guys like that I grew up on, Tim McDonald or Todd Bowles or John Lynch. These guys were 6'2", 6'3" safeties that weighed like 225, 230 pounds that had no problem, meeting Emmitt Smith in the hole and lighting them up like a Christmas tree because they were built like today's linebackers. And honestly, they might have been thicker, definitely bigger hitters. And what you see out of Skattebo so far this season is like his style kind of works because he's not taking on Greg Lloyd of the Pittsburgh Steelers from 1995. He's not taking on Ken Norton Jr. in 1996. He's taking on smaller linebackers that are much more built for going lateral and covering the outside zone and literally covering running backs in coverage. And if he does get through the linebacker, he's going to rock a safety. And tonight was really cool. Like, that was a moment. And I thought, and we'll get into Dart here in a second, who was obviously fantastic and had a breakout game for the country to see. But I thought Herbstreit did a good job tonight of saying, like, listen, you go as far as your quarterback goes, and if Dart's playing well, you're going to win some games. But you could feel Skattebo being the heartbeat of this team, right? And one takeaway I had is, if the Giants are the worst team in your division, you got a pretty good division because they got some premium defensive linemen. I mean, Brian Burns, maybe a little out of sight, out of mind. I think he had 8.5 sacks last year. This year, he's been fantastic. And, tonight they're putting him on the side with Abdul Carter. So they're lining both those two guys up on one side and just running different stunts and twists. Like, good luck, even with a fantastic offensive line, trying to block that type speed and that type ability to get on guys' edges, to bend the length, their closing speed. He's been a monster this year. Kayvon Thibodeau, again, a guy that I was like, fifth-year option, has played really well and has been a real physical player. We know how good Lawrence is, so their defensive line has been fantastic. And Skattebo tonight just give that thing life to go with the quarterback. And, I wrote down just some thoughts overall from him as a player. Because I think as a GM, as a coach / play caller, as a fan base, as an owner, I think when it comes to a young player who is starting his first couple games and who's drafted high, everyone's looking for the same thing. Like, most of the time, that guy's on a shitty team. So you're not going to win the Super Bowl, right? You're not going to compete to win the division typically. Like Jaden Daniels last year. Team actually turned out to be pretty good. Obviously, he was fantastic. Typically, though, the guy drafted really high, and I know Jaxson Dart was technically drafted in the mid-20s, but is going to a team like the Giants that has no chance to make the playoffs, and all you're looking for is some hope. And, really, you're evaluating him on the physical traits, how he operates after he gets hit, how he operates on third longs, how he operates against different defensive looks. And listen, there is no disputing his athletic ability. He's not Lamar or Kyler, but he is the modern-day pocket quarterback. That's what these modern-day pocket quarterbacks look like. There are no Jared Goffs coming into the NFL anymore. Kind of miss that day and age, right, of the Mannings, the Bradys, the Carson Palmers, the Phillip Rivers, but those days are done. Watch college football on Saturday. Guys don't look like that. They look like Jaxson Dart. And Jaxson Dart is kind of that, he's not those guys height-wise, but he's kind of that sweet spot of like Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo. 6'2", 6'2.5", can see over the line, not small enough where you have to, get him on the move, always do see, but his athleticism and scrambling ability is really evident. And it was on full display tonight because he can do two things. He can scramble to throw, which he did countless times, and to scramble to throw. And this is my wife, when Russell came in after Jaxson got hurt, she's like, how is Russell was incredible. And she's a huge Niner fan, so she watched him in the peak of his powers. She's like, what happened to that guy? I'm like, I don't know. I've never really seen any precipitous drop off quite like that. But I'd say the biggest thing is he used to be the greatest scrambling thrower I'd like ever seen. And then that just disappeared. And that's what Dart was doing tonight. He was making throws on the move. And that's what we talk about with the modern day quarterback. You see it with Jalen. You got to be able to move and throw. But he also can run. Now, we got to be careful, and Jalen's gotten good at this. No hits. You can't take these vicious shots. Even though that John Lynch and Steve Atwater and Ronnie Lott are not playing in the NFL anymore and those hits aren't really allowed, once you pass the line of scrimmage and you put your head down, you start running, people will look to kill you because it's the only time, 17 times a year, that these defenders even get to think about touching the quarterback. And they run faster than they ever have, and these guys collide together. And Jaxson got crunched on the one play where he was laying down there forever. Then, I don't know, Dayball maybe just gives no shits, ran him again when he came back into the game on a quarterback power. But so obviously the athleticism, he can see, his arm strength speaks for itself. But two things stood out to me. To be a good quarterback in the NFL, right? To be a great quarterback in the NFL, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, right? They do extraordinary stuff, right? They make plays that are highlight plays for forever in football lore, right? You think about the great plays of Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes' career. But what we don't talk about a lot with those guys is how well they do on the basic stuff. Like if you run a wheel route, Patrick is not going to miss you. When you have a check down and it's 2nd and 10, and the check down can get me to 3rd and 3, he is not going to miss it. Shitty quarterbacks, typically, they don't fail in the NFL because they can't on the run throw a ball 45 yards, right? Or make an incredible deep out throw from the opposite hash, and basically 35 yards in the air on a rope. Most guys in the NFL can do that. But it's the basic stuff, the inaccuracy on the easy stuff. And tonight, how many times he just was accurate on, I would say, quote unquote, football layups. And I don't know, he didn't even have that many football layups, but stuff that if you're going to be a good player, you have to hit. And the thing that you can never quantify, because someone DM'd me actually, like, what's the best way to figure out if a quarterback's good or not? They're like, win-loss record feels a little unfair because so much is out of your career, your control. Just sacks or interceptions. Like, what metrics do you look for? And I said, the hard part, one, over time, like in an individual year, a great player can have a losing record. But I don't care who your coach is and who your coordinator is. If you're a good player over the long sample size of your career, you're going to win. You might not win Tom Brady level games or Peyton Manning games, but you're going to be a winning player. Joe Burrow last year. Team was in shambles, couldn't stop a nosebleed, still found a way to go 9-8. Right? Good players find a way to win games. And a big reason for that is like, you're going to get hit playing quarterback. And there are going to be times where you have to wait that extra second for a deep breaking route to open up. Because this is not Ole Miss playing Mississippi State, where you're going to have wide receivers open by a dramatic margin, right? I'm not saying it doesn't happen in the NFL, but consistently on just basic pass plays on 2nd and 10, 3rd and 8, you're running crossers, you're running outs, and the margin for being open and not being open is pretty small, especially relative to what you're used to in college. And sometimes if that route, you got to wait that extra second, and that twist or that blitz is going to get through. And there was a play tonight on 3rd and 8, and Dart hit the outbreaking route in stride. So all night long, like there was a play over the middle of the field where he threw an absolute dart. I'm like, well, his arm is more than good enough. His athleticism is more than good enough. But his toughness running around, you could be almost like sometimes he's reckless. But the true toughness is when you're standing in there, and this is kind of what ended Andrew Luck's career. Phillip Rivers made a career doing this. Stand in there to the last possible second and deliver that ball to when your guy's going to be open. And he did it countless times. And this is why I said from the beginning, and listen, I'm not going to pretend to know more football than Brian Daboll. Obviously, being around Belichick and Saban, like the guy knows offensive football and he knows his team. But I do think he made a mistake. This isn't your typical like 1 year wonder in college. This guy was a 3 year starter in the SEC for a team that every single year plays Alabama, LSU, Texas A&M. Like their schedule is legitimate, and he was winning games and was like a prepared guy to come in. Now, like any young player, you have to, figure out the speed of the game and everything. But you saw tonight, after a couple game reps, understanding the speed, this was a short week. They didn't do anything more than a walkthrough. His star wide receiver has a torn ACL, and he's slinging that thing around. So I was blown away by his touch and accuracy on balls that aren't fastballs. Because, like, Josh Allen can throw a fastball, Mahomes can throw a fastball, Justin Herbert can throw a fastball. But how about the pass that needs to be layered to Hyatt in the corner of the end zone? Hit him in stride. That's a thing. That's Joe Burrow. That's beautiful. That's a gorgeous pass. Now Ringo grabbed his arm, PI, and the next play, Skattebo scores. But like, you can't ask for much more. And I mean, I thought one of the moments so far of the year is Brian Daboll is having, since they made the playoffs a couple years ago, it's been really ugly. And the start of this year has been a little clunky. And their owners got cancer. Their star players torn his ACL. They're losing games. They're a huge underdog against the defending champs, who, like I said, in theory is a rivalry, but they've been so shitty, this game hasn't really mattered. It's like even when they're close, like whatever, you don't even matter, right? The Eagles and the Cowboys have become much more at the forefront because over the McCarthy era with Dak, like the Cowboys were kind of good, so those games mattered. This Giants team, they haven't been good, and all of a sudden you get momentum. You're like, we're gonna win this game, and then Jaxson Dart lays there, and all timer. He goes to the tent. Dayball beelines it to the tent. And I had people like tweeting at me, like, does this ever happen? And I'm like, well, when that guy in the tent is your contract extension and that guy on the field is HR telling me to turn in my key card and give me the computer and we will escort you out of the building, you would scream at everyone in the vicinity, specifically what it looked like to be the doctor. Just an incredible moment by a guy that was emotional, and you could feel it. He knew that if Dart could not come back from that tent, unless I'm recording this right after the game, so I'm sure they'll talk about whatever the hell was going on. I assume it was a head, but who knows? Could have been something else. That Russell Wilson, you see one play, you're like, we're going to lose this game. We can't, even though there was a quarter and like 5 minutes left, we cannot win this game with that guy quarterback because they're going to know I'm going to hand the ball off every single play because I'm not going to trust this guy throwing. And he like had a mental breakdown. And then Dart came back in the game, and kind of the rest is history. But incredible moment by Cam Skattebo, who was going to be a cold hero. And you could feel it coming. And Jaxson Dart, like, listen, how many games they're going to win the rest of the year? Like, they could lose to anybody, obviously. I mean, some of these wide receivers he's throwing to, it kind of had like a Mac Jones 49er against the Rams feel to it. But that's what you want to see. Like all the physical attributes. You almost evaluate the player on a non-playoff team that's a rookie at quarterback like you would a college prospect. How does his arm look? How does his touch look? How does his toughness? What's he like when we're losing? How he carries himself? How do they gravitate toward him? Which clearly it looks like he's checking all the boxes. And Brian Daboll's no dummy because his future on this team, there is a future because of this guy. Now, I said all along, once you're the owner and you give him the go-ahead to draft this player, it's one thing when you have the number one overall pick, right? It's like, we'll take Cam Ward. If Brian Callahan fails, we'll fire him and we'll hire someone else. When you let a guy trade up, the GM trade up, and they showed the video I remember the Giants put out, and the GM was basically Joe Shane. Like, I told you I'd get him. Like, he was doing it for Daboll. And Jordan Renan and people that cover this team have said if you go to these practices, especially in training camp, Jameis and Russell would be off doing their own thing, and Dart would be following Daboll around, or Daboll be following Dart around like your dog does you around the house. And Daboll's no dummy. He knows where his bread is going to be buttered if this thing is going to work. And if you have more games like this, like Daboll's not going anywhere. Pretty simple. Because they do have some pieces, and if Neighbors comes back, they have another good draft. Like there is some positivity here, right? They finally, for the first time, this guy showed more young than Daniel Jones ever did. I think Dart's got a little more shit to him than Daniel Jones. Not the Daniel Jones that we're seeing right now with the Colts that kind of looks like Jaxson Dart tonight, but the guy that looked like for the New York Giants. And obviously Skattebo is just pretty special player. Now, I had the honor and the privilege of working for multiple years inside the building at NovaCare before they sent me on the road. And I never had the opportunity to work for like Steve Cohen or anyone in Wall Street, though I watched the show Billions and I've listened some book on tapes about that world, and it fascinates me. I think there are a lot of parallels. Uh, though the lowest people on the totem pole at Wall Street, like the equivalent of like the lowest level scout, still makes like 200 grand. That's not the case in football. But in terms of long hours, the pressure, and just how everyone's on tilt 24/7, 365, that is the Philadelphia Eagles. And Charles Woodson put out tonight, someone in Philly is getting fired. And I think it's a two-way street. With high standards, with intensity, I was watching some YouTube clips from Edelman's podcast earlier. And he has former Patriots on, and they just kind of tell war stories about the standard of when they first got drafted, how intense in the heyday the Patriots were. How everyone, like no one slept well. At any moment you thought you could get cut. At any moment you thought your career could end. At any moment you thought you were headed to the UFL. It was a very, very intense environment. That's Philadelphia. And like tonight, I don't even think like they actually weren't that bad early on. There was a moment when it was 2017. Jalen has the Eagles as like 3rd and 8 or something, has Devontae Smith blown coverage wide open. Devontae could have ran to Boston. No one would have touched him. But he overthrew him by like 15 yards. I mean, it was a egregious miss for how wide open he was. Worst case scenario, you like lob it up where he just stops even if he gets tackled and you get a 40-yard gain. But it was 2017. If he hits him, Eagles take the lead right there, 24-20. I'll promise you one thing. If the Eagles had ever taken the lead in this game, especially in a moment like that where Devontae goes 70 yards, walks right in the end zone, they do not lose this game. Instead, he misses. They punt. The Giants drive. They score 27-17. Still, though, the game didn't quite feel over. It did when Jalen essentially threw the pick six to the young corner who I didn't even know that much about. I had to Google him. He's from LSU a couple years ago. Flott, I think his name is, who had an awesome play. I mean, the top end speed didn't look like Deion Sanders, but the play on the ball, on the out route, was sweet. And that was the nail in the coffin. And big picture, like if you're the Eagles, their two best defensive players, well, Jalen Carter didn't even dress. He's one of the best young defensive players in the NFL. Like if you did a draft from scratch and you just said non-quarterbacks, only defensive players, young players, Jalen Carter would be in the mix to be the number 1 pick off the board. And Quinyon Mitchell, their corner, I don't know if he'd go like top 2 or 3, but he wouldn't make it past the top 10. Well, he hurts his hamstring. He's gone early in the game. So you're missing your 2 best defensive players. Well, guess what? The Eagles' defense this year is not as good as last year. Brandon Graham, gone. Sweat, gone. Milton Williams, gone. Their pass rush isn't as good. And as someone in the NFL texts me like, listen, Fangio's awesome, but he's not exactly Flores. He's not Wink Martindale. He doesn't want to blitz that much. He dominates when he can just send 4 guys to get pressure. Well, they can't right now. So once Jalen Carter's out, like Jordan Davis isn't Aaron Donald. They're not getting any pressure. And once Mitchell's out, their DBs are Ringo and Adoree Jackson getting spun like a dreidel out there, got no shot, and they start getting worked. And then offensively, again, like I thought early on he wasn't bad. They had that kind of trick play that went for a touchdown that people told me on social media. I guess they had ran during the Bucks, and it worked, and Goddard gets in. And they had some momentum in the passing game to AJ and Devontae and Dallas Goedert. Like they had some explosive plays with Saquon Barkley. The offense by no means looked terrible, but in the second half, it unraveled. And the way Philly works, from the owner to Howie. It's intense. And these type performances, even though you're the defending champs, you're 4-2. You look at the landscape in the NFC, you're fine. They're going to say something's off. This is not okay. We're paying too much bleeping money. Too many guys we've given too much cash to. We're paying our coaches a ton of money. Like, this offensive coordinator is just, I don't know if he's going to get fired tomorrow. I don't know if he's going to get fired on Monday, but he's in major trouble. There's no way around it. And like, if you tell me right now, do you think he's going to get the year? I would say no. I would say no. Now, here's the problem. What do you do? What are your other options? Because you also got the elephant in the room. Like, you don't need to be, a Stanford psychologist to see the way the two wide receivers were sitting on the bench going, yeah, doesn't look like they revere their quarterback. We already know AJ doesn't. And when you miss a receiver as much as you do Devontae, like, what do you think? He's going to be happy? It's not the way these guys are wired. So it's just a little clunky. You got this first-time offensive coordinator. It's not going great, even though it's not totally his fault. The defense got gashed tonight, but Fangio's on scholarship, as he should be. But everything's just out of kilter. And the intensity in that building, it's always just, it's not like put your feet up and chill. That's not how they are when they're undefeated running to the Super Bowl, let alone when you get clowned. Because that's what happened tonight. The Eagles in the second half got clowned. Skattebo, the Giants, took their souls. After the Phillies had one of the worst endings you'll ever see. The pitcher freak threw it to home, threw it over the catcher's head when he could have just thrown it first. Rough night in Philadelphia. Did lose to the Dodgers, which is, nothing to hang your hat on, but Phillies are spending a lot of money. They lose. And then the Eagles just get curb stomped like that against the Giants. And Cam Skattebo and Jaxson Dart are just doing whatever they want against them all night long. And Jalen's missing Devontae Smith and throwing an awful pick in a spot that 27-17, they score on that drive, which it felt like they did or would and were going to. All of a sudden, it's 27-24. Find me a Giants fan when they were driving right there before we threw that pick, 6, kind of, that would have thought they were going to win the game. Not one would have, because all the momentum would have been for Philly, and it was a game changer. So I just think this is a spot for the Eagles where you just go, Mitchell, did he pull his hamstring? This Jalen Carter injury? They're not as deep. They're very dependent on their high-end guys, to dominate. I think Austin Whitworth? I don't think that's his name. Am I screwing up his name? I've had him on the podcast before. I like the guy. But Whitworth at halftime was saying, I thought he had a good point. He's like, Andrew, my bad, Andrew, fellow ball brother, LSU Tiger. Andrew Whitworth, he said, like, the explosive runs with Saquon to start the game are great. And no one will ever complain about an 18-yard run and a 13-yard run. He had 31 yards in the first two plays. But, like, part of being a great running back, and listen, Derrick Henry, Adrian Peterson, whoever, it's Christian McCaffrey, throughout the course of a game, especially a tight game, is like, we need more of those, like, 5 and 6 and 7-yard runs. And that wasn't really happening tonight. So it was like they were getting explosive, a couple runs from Saquon, which hasn't really happened this season. But some of those just like, we're going to lean on you for those 5, 6, 7-yard runs. He was getting stuffed countless times in the backfield. So to me, their running game, which was, unstoppable last year. We talked a lot about the long runs, the 60, 70-yard explosive runs. But it's a lot of, like, I would say 5 to 9-yard runs that break a team, which is what Skattebo was doing tonight. And when you get leaned on like that, anyone that plays high school football, let alone in the pros, knows that I'm removing your soul. I'm removing your soul. I'm taking it from you and breaking you. And that's what the Giants were able to do. And the Eagles are not able to do that right now. And their offensive coordinator has no ability to like put it in, like, it's hard to even put into words. I actually just talked like he calls plays. It's like, what'd you just say, John? Exactly. You have to, you either have a feel for it or you don't. And watching him call plays right now, you just go, something's off. And the Eagles are 4-2, but man, with the injuries, with the trajectory of their season. It feels weird. There's no way around it. Like if you were a betting man right now, you would not feel confident that they're going to go back to the Super Bowl. Long way to go. A lot of talent still on that team, but I do think the offensive coaching as the play caller leaves a little something to be desired. Couple more things before we get out of here. Again, awesome win by the Giants. I really really I really enjoyed that tonight. I want to bring up something that I saw today on the internet, and it has to do with the Cleveland Browns. And the front office sports today put out a visual of the Browns. And I don't know if this has ever happened before. That the Browns are currently paying eight, I repeat, eight quarterbacks. Watson, obviously, is making a ton, 35.9. But you know, Jameis Winston, the guy you saw tonight on the Giants, he's on their payroll right now for $2.2 million. Dylan Gabriel, their starter, who they drafted. Joe Flacco, who's now on the Cincinnati Bengals, like they're still paying him some, $999,000. Shedeur Sanders, who I think is the backup, maybe, not quite sure. Bailey Zappi, who also might be the backup, I'm not quite sure. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who I think's on the Eagles. And Kenny Pickett, who I'm pretty sure is on the Raiders. I get these texts from some of my friends in the NFL is, the thing with the Browns, like people think Stefanski knows his shit and think he's a good guy. But like him and the GM are two Ivy League guys. Yet their franchise, it's not all their fault. Like I don't blame them specifically for Deshaun Watson in that situation. That was owner led. But this year, it's just it's just been clunky. It's just been very weird. And it does feel, sometimes, let's use the 49ers, because a couple years ago, the Browns were a playoff team with Joe Flacco. They have a lot of good players on their team. Looks like they even drafted some really good guys. Like, you should be able to function. And you just watch them, that franchise, and the Sanders thing with Stefanski, just name him the backup quarterback or not. What the fuck are you doing? You know who doesn't play games like that? Andy Reid. He would just say, yeah, he's the backup. Yeah, he's not the backup. Like, we're going to figure it out. Like, doing stuff like that creates bigger stories. We got on Shedeur for the miming. Stefanski, just come out and say who the backup is. Because like, I doubt you're going to figure it out at practice when they're not even taking reps. So some of this is on those two guys. It is just not a well-run operation. Obviously, the owner has his issues and has accounted for a lot of the problems. But let's not act like the two Ivy League guys, the head coach and the GM, haven't kind of been a disaster. The other thing that I saw was a tweet with the strength of schedules. And Alex Barth, who I don't know, but he put out this good visual of the hardest to easiest schedules. Jaxson Dart, Skattebo, the Giants have the hardest schedule remaining. Like, this is starting before this game tonight for the rest of the year. The two easiest schedules in the NFL are the New England Patriots, and they were a team like I did. I thought, like, they'll probably make the 7th seed. I don't know how good they'll be, but their coach is good. Coaching staff's good. They got more NFL guys than last year. Their schedule's a joke. That I 9-8, 10-7, probably get you a wild card spot. I picked them to make a wild card simply because of the schedule. I said the same thing with the 49ers, who I liked more than the Patriots. But if you told me the Niners had the toughest schedule in the league before the season, I would not have picked them to make the playoffs. But the schedule's a joke. Like, they'd got to go 10-7 with Adrian Martinez, let alone Mac or Brock Purdy. But this is a team that stands out. The second easiest schedule in the league moving forward is the Denver Broncos. And I was thinking about it today, like, the Chiefs are about to play the Lions. Like, it's like we need a get right game. We're getting the Lions. Like, that's not an easy, just like, we really need to win, because we're 2-3. The Raiders are in shambles. You got Pete Carroll taking some shots at Chip Kelly. It's like, hey, Chip, they're paying you $6 million. They want some offense, buddy. Like, I mean, this is, you can say whatever you want. Like, they're expecting some points on the board. And the Chargers, who just have an unlimited amount of injuries that you can't overcome. Your tackles, your first-round running back, your other running back all being out. Like, this, you're in shambles. So the Chiefs have this, like, uphill climb to get to, like, if in a couple weeks they're 4-4, they're going to be feeling good about themselves. Denver Broncos, you get the Jets this week. Then you get the Giants the next week. Like, you should look up and be like 5-2. And then the rest of your schedule is a lot of the Cowboys, the Raiders twice. You get the Chiefs at home, which you played them well last year. The Chargers again, who are in shambles. The Jags, who you should be better than. So to me, there is pressure on Denver once you factor in the schedule, where they're at currently, the way Sean Payton talked about the team before the season. Like, you should win this division. And then at number 28 is the Bills. And I've been saying this since the offseason. Anyone with a brain understands this. Getting the number one seed is so big in this modern NFL because only one team gets a bye now. But we've seen over the course of the last couple of years, like, obviously the Ravens blew it a couple of years ago, but they would have had no chance if they had to go to Kansas City. Part of the reason they were favorites because home game. I mean, it's a really big deal to host the AFC Championship game at home. Right? Look at last year. Look how big of an advantage it was for the Bills to host that game against the Ravens in the second round. And they have an electric atmosphere. It's all wide open for them, especially given their schedule. I mean, here's who Buffalo. They still got the Jets. They got the Titans. They got the Raiders. They got the Dolphins. They got a banged up Ravens team. They've already played them. They got the Bengals, the Panthers. I mean, the Bills have some fucking joke teams. So I think the pressure on Denver to win the division and Buffalo to take advantage and finally get the one seed and be like, it comes. We're not going to Kansas City. We're not going to Baltimore. Obviously not this year, but it's coming to us. Right? We're not going to let Indy all of a sudden sneak up and win 14 games. We're winning this thing. And last but not least, I don't know if this is posturing, but I saw Florio wrote this up because the co-CEO of Netflix was at like a Bloomberg. I don't know if they were doing something on television or like a convention, and was asked about his opinion on getting involved in the next NFL bidding rights. And he gave some quotes that says they're not going to. And basically, it doesn't really fit our strategy. We want to stay disciplined, and it's not something we're looking to do right now. Now, it also could be that they think the NFL is going to try to bend them over because they know how much money they have, a lot like Amazon, and we're going to try to get an unlimited amount and start bidding them against Fox, CBS, and ABC. But if we want to take them at their word, which they're so big and successful now that also anything the CEO says like has implications on the stock price, I do believe what comes out of his mouth. So when he says it doesn't really fit our strategy, you know who that's a massive win for? The legacy channels. If you're Fox, if you're CBS, if you're ABC, and Netflix truly doesn't get involved, beside maybe a couple Christmas games every year, that is a massive win for you. Because one thought I've had all along is that, like, if Amazon or Netflix really wanted to flex their muscles, I would say the same thing for Apple. Be like, well, who watches Apple? They sure would if Apple won. The Netflix will sell, or the NFL would sell it to them if they come in at 5x what Fox and CBS are offering. But maybe Netflix isn't that interested. They just want to dabble here and there, enjoy it, making money without it. Plus, like, get involved for that much money, which would be billions of dollars, ties them to that. Though I do think that it would work and be really successful. Maybe they go with the amount of people that we already have that subscribe. Let's say, I think the number worldwide is well over 100 million, well over 100 million people. It's like 150. But what is it incrementally going to go up that much just having these, NFL games? Now, part of it too would be like you would never cancel if tough economic times ever hit. Though I would argue that Netflix is pretty recession proof. If anything, it would get more usage in a recession and in tough economic times. But that's a big win for some of the legacy media partners if, when the dust settles and this opportunity to get involved in the bidding process, and they say, yeah, we're not interested. I found that pretty fascinating. But have a great night.